1.21 gigawatts. Great Scott!
Shall we play a game?
Would you like a jelly baby?
Engage auto systems.
Aye. Engaged.
Clear all moorings.
Cleared, sir.
1/4 impulse power.
You know how to fly, don't you?
No. Do you?
You shall not pass!
Before we get started, does anyone want to get out?
Down here, it's our time. It's our time down here.
The Force will be with you, always.
Hi, and welcome to the Geek Hangout podcast. My name is Mark, and I am joined tonight, as always, by my very good friend and co-host, Grant. How you doing tonight, Grant?
Hey, Mark, I'm doing great. Hey, everyone, thanks for tuning in to the Geek Hangout podcast. This is episode 79, so we got a big show for you tonight. We got we're going to talk Ashoka, episodes 1 and 2. Did you see 3 today? Did you?
Oh no, I never got to see 3, so I haven't.
All right.
I haven't seen the latest.
All right, so we'll talk. I did see it, but we'll talk episodes of Ashoka 1 and 2, and then we're going to talk about Marvel's Secret Invasion, the entire series. We've been away for a little while, so we're going to catch up on that. And same thing with Star Trek: Strange New World season 2. I think we talked about an episode or two of that, but anyway, that came and went since our last show, and so we're going to talk about that too. So good, nice little show, a lot of catching up, and then we obviously have the new Ahsoka stuff. So, but as always, we like to start out to catch up with each other, say, what's been going on, what have you been up to this summer?
Well, I think I mentioned it on the last show. We went to Europe. Yes. We went to the UK, and this year, and it was fantastic. We were there for 10 days. Spent 5 days in London, and then we went to Scotland, and really great trip. I mean, I don't want to get into all of it. But we saw so much. We saw a bunch of stuff. We saw, all this great stuff in London, the Churchill War Rooms, and Crown Jewels, and all these fantastic things.
Right.
And then we went to and then we spent 5 days in Scotland, and we saw a bunch of stuff, old castles and everything there too. So I'm not going to go into everything we did and all that. Nobody wants to hear about my summer vacation, but
turn into a travel podcast,
right? Hey, seriously. But what I did want to talk about that is geek related is that one of the things we did when we were in London, we went to this Harry Potter. I don't know, I forget what it is, the Harry Potter experience, but it's like at the Warner Brothers Studios outside of London. Okay. And I'll tell you, this was and I like Harry Potter. I'm not the biggest Harry Potter fan. My kids really like it. My daughter's still really into it. My son,
good,
is starting to age out of it a little bit, but he still likes everything. And this experience was so cool. Like I really didn't know what to expect. I hadn't read anything about it. Like I didn't even really know what we were going to see.
Yeah.
And and so I was sort of expecting we'd be there for a couple of hours and then we head back to London. I didn't really know what to expect. And it was far beyond all of my expectations. Like it was really, really cool. And it's like you go to this experience, and it's like the actual sets from the Harry Potter movies, and they've preserved them all, and now they're on display. And it was just the coolest thing. Like we ended up spending, I think, 6 hours at this thing.
Oh, wow! Right,
just walking around and looking at the different things, and there were costumes and and I'll just show some pictures that I took while we were there, and it was just the coolest thing. Like, so this was Dumbledore's office, and this is the actual set. This is what they actually filmed on, and
that's cool.
And it was just the neatest thing to walk around and see how. I mean, it's so. You know how like sometimes the sets are real like.
Right.
They make it look. It's for the movie, right? And it's supposed to be temporary, and so it's sort of like what the camera sees is beautiful, but then right behind it, it's plywood, stuff like that.
Yes.
And that was not the case here. It was like. And I think they built these sets because they knew they were going to use them for all of the movies.
Right.
right?
Right.
And so they sort of built them to last, and they're just absolutely beautiful. And you walk around, you're just like it does feel like you're in the movie, like
That's
you walk
cool.
into the sets, and it was
Yeah.
just, and I took a absurd number of pictures while we were there. I'm only going to show you a few of them, but like this was Dumbledore's office. I thought that was really cool.
That's yeah.
They have, this is the Gryffindor common
Oh,
room,
right. Yeah. Yeah.
and it's like over here back in the back there is where the face of his uncle showed up in the
Right. Okay.
fire and all that.
That's
But
right.
like, yeah, this is the actual set, and like, it's so cool to see the furniture was like, all kind of beat up and used, sort of like it would be in a college dormitory, right?
Right. Yeah.
And it was just it was really really cool. And
That's neat.
we saw Snape's office, we saw Hagrid's hut. I'm not going to show all those pictures, but
Okay.
like, some of the I'm trying to think, they had one of the staircases, like the movable staircases. Now,
Oh, right.
a lot of that was CG, but they had an actual staircase that would move and that they would shoot on.
Sure, probably what they were standing on, right?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
You
That's
know,
pretty cool.
Yeah, so that was really neat. It's sort of, and then we went to the prop shop at one point, and they showed how they created some of the trolls, or the creature shop rather. And
I think that's neat. Yeah.
Yeah, and they sort of step by step how they created the trolls, and that was really neat. I mean, it's just like a bunch of props, costumes. I mean, it was just the car that Harry and Ralph, or Harry and
Ron
were in,
right?
in the second movie, like that was there.
That's cool.
They actually showed, so at one point you go out into like a courtyard, and they have all the sort of models that they, the force perspective models that they would use for sure. So I think like the Weasley's house, the burrow, right?
Yes.
Was, they had the model of it, which, was like a little taller than I am, right? But it was,
well, right, when you put it in the field or something,
right,
it makes it. Yeah, I gotcha.
So they had the model of the house. They had the Privet Drive house that you could kind of walk through. That's the house where Harry and his his aunt and his uncle.
Yeah, right. Okay.
And like his room under the staircase and all that kind of stuff. And it was just I mean, I can't. I mean, it was just so cool. Like it was it was really really neat, and I'm so glad we did it. And it's funny because now that I've done it, and I posted on social media about it and stuff, and I have friends who were like, "Oh, I've always wanted to go and see that," and I didn't even know it was there until we started planning this trip, right? But it was well worth the time, to go. So if you're ever in London and you get a chance to go to this thing, absolutely do it.
Well, and then one of the things we were saying before the show is that it's still like this set part has become a tourist attraction, but the rest of the thing is still like a working movie studio.
Right.
So I'm kind of getting old school like Disney MGM vibes when when that park first opened up. That was the whole thing. It's like, oh, we actually make real movies here.
Right.
Now that ended up not working out for them, but it's like that sort of thing where it's like,
it's exactly right. Like this is what the Hollywood studios should have been.
Right. Yeah.
And it was really cool. I mean, I don't know how else to say. I mean, you saw at one point you get to where the train is, and they have they have like the train built, and they would shoot on the train, right? So all the little cars, the cars that they sat in with the doors that slid open and stuff like that, they were sitting, they shot on that train, and it's really neat. And it's sort of cool. Like the big sort of finale of it is you get to see, and I wish I could, you get to see, they built this huge model of Hogwarts,
right?
And this is just a tiny section of the model. Like, I mean, it takes up a whole room, like a whole sound stage. Like it's enormous.
That's crazy.
And it was so detailed, and it's just like, we were actually walking around, and like one of the movies, I think it's one of the movies where they have like a prom or something like that.
Right.
Harry's on is standing in one of the towers and like looking out, and they had like little descriptions of where that kind of stuff took place, and they'd show you where the tower, that was the tower that he would have come out.
Was. Yeah, I got
right.
you. Okay.
And it was, and like the bridge that they always come out and stand on and like talk.
Yep.
That that was there.
That's amazing. I had no idea that they built such a large real model of everything.
Yeah, I wish I could have. Like, there was just no way. Like, the thing is enormous.
Yeah.
So you could only take like little photos of it, but I wish you could, like, when you walk into that room and you're like, oh my God, that's Hogwarts, and it's just takes up the whole room.
That's crazy, right?
Yeah,
that's really neat and really impressive, though. Like, that's old school movie making there. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
So that's pretty neat. I had no idea they built that big of a model, like especially that, like to take up a whole studio like that. But, yeah, and it makes you wonder. Like I'm thinking more of the technical stuff too, and I'm like, well, I guess they would bring the cameras in and like just like a special effect, they would bring a camera in and swoop it by like if something was flying by or whatever like that. And then I guess then like in this shot here, you can see the ceiling, but they would insert a background, insert the sky or something like that. So that's really cool though. That is really neat.
Like those like that one, I forget which movie it is, but one of those scenes where he's like zooming around on his
oh right,
broom.
yeah.
Like it was they probably used this model for it.
Yeah, right.
And then CG'd in.
You popped him in there, and then the background. Yeah.
When they did the long shots, right?
Right.
And then when they did closer up, it was probably different. But like, yeah, it was just, I don't know how else to say. Like, I was so impressed by this experience, right?
Neat, yeah.
And it was just really neat, So
cool.
if you get a chance to check it out, definitely do it if you're a Harry Potter fan, because it's well worth it.
That's so funny. I can't help but think of the Star Wars stuff. Like, imagine like if Lucas had, as good as he was for everything else, like he didn't think to save anything.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, the movie's over. Like, I always think of like Jabba's sail barge. They built that out in the middle of the desert, and afterwards he's like, tear it down.
Yeah.
And like meanwhile you're like, dude, you could have been raking in a fortune.
Right. It could have been a restaurant or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So funny. Yeah. And then like you said about the creature shop, that sounds really neat too, because that reminds me of those old Star Wars things where you'd go behind the scenes. And I remember there's one from Jedi where they're just cranking out monster, aliens left and right. And I always was fascinated by that. So that sounds really neat.
Yeah, it was really cool. Really cool.
Man. That's awesome.
They showed some of the animatronics they used and stuff. Like it's just neat. Just the coolest thing.
Yeah. And that stuff's come so far too,
Yeah. So definitely, and so then we went. So after this, we went to we tried. My wife tried to. She knew the kids were interested in Harry Potter, so she tried to do some Harry Potter stuff. And so after London, we went to Scotland, and one of the really cool things we did was this is the Glenfinnan Viaduct. So this is the bridge that the train would go across in like every movie,
Yes.
And this was really cool. This was neat to see, and absolutely like this area of Scotland is just gorgeous. It really is. And this was just a really neat thing to do. Now the train actually still runs, right?
Okay.
There's actually still a train, and it's like looks, it's all painted like the Hogwarts Express and stuff like that.
And it actually runs on this.
And it's still actually runs. But like when we were there, and you can ride it too. Like you can, okay. I think you can leave from. I don't remember where you leave from, but like you can ride the train. Yeah. We talked about doing that, but we were just hoping to get there when the train crossed. But like when we were there, apparently the train was having some kind of problem. It was down, had been down for like 2 weeks or something. Like that.
Figures right, yeah.
So we didn't get to see it, but just the viaduct it by itself
that's
is
cool.
Really neat.
Yeah, that's cool all by itself. That is really neat.
Yeah,
and that's the type of thing too. I mean, I don't know. Did you remember how old is it? Do you remember off the top of your head?
I don't know. I don't know.
But like again, it's like it seems to be out in the middle of nowhere, and it's like this massive structure, and you're like, how old is this thing?
Yeah,
like,
and it really is. It's like it's like off the beaten track. It's kind of out in the middle.
Yeah.
And so that was really neat. Then, in Edinburgh, I don't have any pictures of this, but like in Edinburgh, apparently J.K. Rowling started writing the first book in Edinburgh. And so there's a bunch of stuff in Edinburgh that, like, there's this one street in Edinburgh that Diagon Alley is based on.
Okay, right.
And it's like all these nice little shops that are painted different colors, sort of like they are in Diagon Alley.
Right.
So that was there. We also walked through. There's a cemetery. It was an old cemetery in the middle of town, and apparently he would to get names for the book. He kind of walked through cemeteries and used some of the names, because the names are like, some of those graves are like from the 1400s or some, it's way back.
Right.
And so we walked through this cemetery, and there's like the name Tom Riddle came from
so funny.
One of the graves there, and the guy Mad Eye Moody.
Right. Yeah.
There we saw the grave of it was a different, not Mad Eye, obviously, it was a different name, but it was Moody. Some of the professors' names were in there. Like it was neat. The Potters' names are like there's a gravesite with Potters' names on it.
Oh wow!
And so and I was like, if you're a writer, like that's not a terrible idea to walk through cemeteries and get names.
Especially when you're, I know it was supposed to be, it's set in modern times, but you're going for that old world feel, or that old,
Yeah.
And so, what a better place to get some old names and stuff than from the, from an old cemetery. That's great.
Yeah, it was really cool. So that it was really neat, and we had a great time. Scotland's gorgeous. If you ever get a chance to go, because it's outstanding.
That sounds like you guys had a great time. That's awesome.
Yeah, really cool. The only other thing I wanted to bring, so that's the trip. I'll end that with that. But the only other thing I wanted to bring up is, I think I've mentioned before, my son and I have really gotten into baseball in the last couple of years, and so he's actually started collecting baseball cards.
Oh, has he? Okay, that's fun.
In the process of doing that,
right?
Like I realized, I found out that they're also they've re-released, like, there's Topps has Star Wars cards. Topps is the big baseball card company,
right?
But Topps also has Star Wars cards, and that they're putting out there again. And I've seen them a couple of times, like we're at stores and stuff like that. And I was like, I wonder what they're about. But it's really like, what card collecting now is not like it was when I was a kid. Like, back, when I collected baseball cards when I was a kid, it was just sort of like, it was like one main line. You got those. I always liked the Phillies, so I tried to trade people for Phillies. But of course, everybody around here likes the Phillies, so it was mostly like the only. My brother used to collect Dodgers, so I used to be able to trade with him.
Okay.
But like, it was, it was very like sort of simple, thing.
Right.
But like, card collecting has gotten way more involved now, and so there's all these different. So you have your main line of cards, and then they have like what they call parallels. Like, I would call them variants, but they call them parallels. And it's like, so you may have a Bryce Harper card, right? That's just like a regular baseball card, but then they'll come out with like a parallel, which is like a chrome variant of that card, which is kind of shiny, and there may be 10 different variants of that card. So there'll be one that's like more bluish, and there'll be one that's more goldish, and there's one that's green, and all those different cards are, there's different numbers of them, and some of them are like numbered. There may only be like 200 of them, and they're all numbered. So it's a whole different like beast now. So they've tried to make it more of a collector thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because you're definitely chasing the chase cards. What I mean? Like you're
And like, even I'll show you this. This is one that things never come up well.
Let's see.
So this is a Kyle. All right, so my son got this, and it's a Kyle Schwarber card. And there's actually, like, you see this little, where this red stripe is? That's actually, and I know it's not great on here, but that's actually a piece of a game used jersey.
Oh, geez. All right.
And like, some of these kinds of things, like, you can buy a regular pack and you may get, and every now and then you may get like these special cards,
Right.
But then they'll also sell like boxes, like collector's boxes, and if you buy, and they're way more expensive, a couple $100.
Oh,
but
okay.
you may be guaranteed, like in that box, that you're going to get a couple of things like that in that box, right?
Right.
And so these Star Wars cards are kind of doing the same thing, right?
Okay.
And like, and I've sort of been like trying to. It's hard to get your arms around. Like, this hobby is huge now.
Right.
Like, it used to be very simple, and now it's like there's all these like arms and legs to it. But like the Star Wars cards, they're sort of doing the same kind of thing. So these cards, they have the signature series, and these are actually actual signatures from the actors, right? And they'll and again, these are numbered, so there may only be like 100 of these,
right?
And they'll be, and then you actually you buy this box, and the box, I think this box was like $200 or something when I checked it,
right?
And but you may get some of these types of cards, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think they're going to have like pieces of costume or anything in there, but it might be like things like signatures and that kind of whatnot.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
Now that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So it's interesting, and I'm kind of leaning. I was like, do I really want to get into this?
Right.
The answer is no, but like, am I going to do it? I don't know.
Yeah. That's the thing. I remember that, geez, this is going back into the 90s, but they came out with, like, when comic books were huge and very speculative collector's market, then they had comic cards based on comic books. So like you'd have all these character cards.
Yeah.
And then like you'd buy your packs and you'd be like, oh, I got Blue Beetle, or I got Flash, or whatever like that. But then like every so many packs you'd open, there'd be like a rare hologram card.
Yeah.
It's like sort of the beginning of all this stuff when they started inserting that stuff. And I remember doing that, like, over the course of buying these cards, I remember getting like, oh my God, I got the, like, like, I got a hologram.
Yeah. And there's whole, like, I've been, like, I was trying to learn about the hobby. Like, because I was like, I want to make sure that what he's buying is worth him spending his money on. Like, I don't,
Yes.
And
right.
So I was trying to like just understand the hobby a little bit, and I went out to YouTube, as you do, right?
Right. Yep.
And there's whole channels where guys get like these boxes. They'll spend $500 on a box of cards.
Right.
And the whole channel is them opening it and like getting the good cards, and like that's the whole
channel. But that's the right, like, they're getting the thrill of opening them, and then you watch it and you're like you're like, oh, I didn't have to spend $500. Like,
yeah, it's crazy,
That's
so
cool,
it's neat. I mean, it's sort of like it's cool that it's because these it's not like with figures you're like, wow, I hope this this becomes a collectible, but it probably won't, right?
Right. Yeah. They're like built. It's like a building collectible type of thing,
right?
Yeah.
But this is like designed to kind of be collectible, right?
Yeah,
you know
design,
what I'm saying?
right? Yeah,
right.
It's rare from the beginning and stuff like that. Yeah. So, no, that's pretty cool. I mean, that's neat. I knew that I've been aware of them doing like the inserts and the chase cards and stuff like that, but like now the actual signatures, that's pretty cool. And like that baseball card you showed with the actual uniform and stuff like that, they're getting pretty creative with how they're doing that. That's pretty neat.
Yeah, it's really cool. So we're actually, there's a card show at Oaks Convention Center.
Oh, okay, right.
That has everything. There's a card show at the end of September. Nick and I are going to go to it.
Oh, that's cool.
And but I'm going to look around, see if they have this kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah.
Just shop around, see what's out there, what it costs.
It's a dangerous path.
I know.
Yeah.
And now I've been, because my Nintendo thing seems to be like, or the video game thing seems to be like leveling off, because I got
you kind of
basically everything I wanted to get, I got.
Right, right.
And now I'm kind of like, well, now what do I do?
Right.
So
That's yep. I know. That's how I got with all my Star Wars stuff. I have everything I wanted from the original run and all that. And I have everybody, and I'm just kind of like, all right, what am I doing now? And I've so far so good. I've been able to hold steady.
yeah, this might be it, man. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that's the well, and like you said with the cards, I mean, there's like so now maybe just if it's just Star Wars, I mean, I don't know who has if it's just Topps that has the license, but last time I remember looking, it was like maybe it was I had to look up some baseball cards at one point, but it's probably been a while. But like for eBay, I was selling them for somebody or doing something like that. But I
Yeah,
just remember like going into that, and now I'm not a sports guy, but I'm familiar with some of the brands, and I'm just like, like there's like everybody under the sun seems to have their own like basically line of baseball cards or sports
yeah,
cards and all that, and I'm just like like wait, what happened to just Tops? It was like, and then Tops has like you said like 3 or 4 different lines, and it's crazy
yeah,
just how how much of it there is. Whereas back in the day, I was like, this is your pack of cards,
yeah.
like
Right,
that's all. Yeah,
exactly. Like there's like and they keep coming out with more. So there's like the main line, and they come out in series 1 and series 2.
right.
So they come out, and then something called Topps Chrome.
Yep, right.
Which there's more of the like
The chrome based,
holographic
yeah,
kind of things. So they're all like they're all based like that, and then there's more, and then you'll get more of these kinds of cards in those.
right.
And then just like in the last week or so, I think something called Cosmic Chrome came out, and it's like different cards, and they're all like space themed or something, which sounds kind of weird.
Right.
And you're looking, you're like, that's a little over the top, but apparently they're very expensive. Like a box of those are like $500.
Oh, geez.
And and I think they're designed that way to be right. Like they want them to be that expensive because not a lot of people are going to buy them, and then
Right.
there's not they're rarer.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah. I have no idea what the market is like right now for all this for cards and sports cards in general. I just remember back in the 90s with comic books, like they used to do that. They would have you'd have the regular comic book would come out, and then you'd have a variant cover. And the cover would be like it'd be a chrome cover where it'd be it'd be like cardstock and it'd be chromed, or there's all these different things. And at the time, everyone's going, I got the variant, and all that stuff. And for a little while, they really weren't worth very much more than what you paid for them.
Yeah.
So it's all about the demand. Now, I haven't checked comic book prices like that kind of stuff in a long time, so I'm sure some of those are probably worth a good bit of money now because they were rare. But then other ones, like I was just reading a thing the other day about when they killed Superman, they came out with it was like the death of Superman, but it was in a bag and it had like an armband for him, and it was like all this stuff, and they sold millions and millions of them, and so like that's worth like $4.
Yeah, right.
So you just have to be careful, it's like, again, supply and demand. It's like, they're selling you a collectible, but then it's like at the same time you're like, all right, this is cool and it's fun, but if you're looking at it from a speculative, if you're hoping it's gonna be worth something, then you got to keep that in mind that like, well, everybody else is buying and saving these too, so how much can it really be worth?
Well, that's what part of what I like about it is that they do have like numbered cards, so there's like exactly how many of those cards are out there,
right.
So when you get one, even if it's not a player you care about,
right, you're like, oh, there's only 300.
It's like, oh wow, this is really cool, right? Like I think that's kind of neat.
That is cool. That is, I do like that. Yeah.
Anyway, that's my little because I keep seeing these, and I think you're right. Like there's different lines of the Star Wars cards, because what I went looking for wasn't what I'm picturing here. It was something else I've seen in the stores.
Oh, I see. Right.
But I couldn't find a picture of it. This was the only way I could find a picture of.
Okay.
So, but like, so there's, even with the Star Wars cards, there's different lines.
Yeah.
Pretty neat.
I know that a Topps has, and this was, probably at least 5, if not more, years ago. Well before the prequels. But Topps has like an app online. They have like digital cards now too.
Oh, really?
And I remember they did it with Star Wars, and I got into it like for a little while. I was like hot and heavy into it, and then I'm just like, what am I doing? And I ended up getting rid of it. But now every once in a while, I'll go to search on eBay for something Star Wars related, and like you'll see like in the results, you'll get baseball, or cards will come up, and then here it'll be even the digital cards that people are selling them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I'm always kind of like, oh, I think I'm like, I think I deleted my account. I was like, maybe I should have hung on to that. Yeah,
that's like
yeah,
NFT like.
Yes, yeah, it was very much like that before that became a thing. It was
Yeah.
like, in the early days of all that. Yeah, I can't even remember. I mean, I remember sitting here in the house. So it was definitely when I was here, which so in the past 20 years.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
But all right. Well, that's all I had.
Okay.
I went on for a long time. So what have you been up to?
So I've had a very boring summer compared to you, apparently. So no, we really haven't been geek related. Really, I don't think not much of anything is going on. I caught up on all the shows we've been watching. I mean, we were doing off to the side. We went down the shore for a week. We were doing some college tours like that. My oldest daughter's getting ready for college next year, and stuff like that. But I did manage to catch up on. I saw we had all these grand plans from the last show. We were teasing about having grand plans in the beginning of the summer of seeing all these movies, but now they're all coming to digital. So now I've managed to catch up on all that stuff. So I saw the Transformers movie, which was meh. That was just kind of like, nothing to write home about. And then I finally watched this past week. I watched The Flash, just came to HBO Max, and I watched that. And that was surprisingly good.
All right.
I mean, maybe my
I still want to see that. I haven't seen it yet, but I still want to see it.
My my what do you call it? My expectations may have been below the basement. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I watched it, and I mean, it wasn't bad. I liked it. It was fun. I mean, Michael Keaton's in it as Batman. He was really good.
Yeah.
Yes, Ezra Miller has all kinds of problems, but he was funny, and as the Flash, I enjoyed him. I mean, I liked the storyline. So it did feel slightly a lot of the special effects felt like unfinished. Like they were passable, but like a lot of them you're like, oh, like it's like, did they think this was gonna be, I didn't know what they were thinking, was Warner Brothers like, oh, this is fine, or were they just sort of like, it's I don't know if they didn't have any faith in it anyway. It was just one of those things where you're watching, you're like, wow, that doesn't really look, it almost reminds it like it was like CW level effects at some point. He's like, and you're like, well, at the end of the day, you're like, it's a guy, the Flash, it's like it's a guy running really fast, but like, you think they could have done something a little bit better for the movie.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, but for if I had paid money in the theater, I may have been a little upset, but for HBO Max, I liked it,
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to check that out.
Yeah. So
have you seen Spider-Verse yet?
No, that hasn't come out. That's not streaming anywhere yet.
Oh, I thought it was out. I thought I heard it was.
It came out on digital. So if you want to rent it, it's like $20. And you can buy it for like 24. And I'm like, well, another month or it'll probably be on. I think I read it's coming. I think it's going to come to Netflix. I read, because since it's a Sony movie, I think their deals with Netflix.
Okay.
I think, unless they worked something else out with Disney, I'm not sure. But I figure out, at this point, I'm like, well, I can wait another month.
Yeah.
And that's one I'm actually really excited to see, because that one was the one that, out of all these movies that were coming out for the summer, that's the one that got the most, like, everybody liked it. It had the best reviews and made like nice money, so and I really liked the first one. Was such a nice surprise when we saw it, and how much we enjoyed it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this one and stuff too.
Yeah, I want to see that too.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's out there on digital if you want to spring for it, but
yeah, I'll wait.
I know, me too.
I'll wait.
Exactly. So we did see we went and saw Barbie. We went and saw
how was that? Yeah, I haven't seen that either.
My wife and my girls loved it. They absolutely loved it. I'm not necessarily the audience for it. I enjoyed it for what it was. It was well done. It was all this and that. I mean, a lot of it was very like, girl power and all that stuff. Which is great. I have no problems with that. But just for, me, I'm just like, I'm like, oh, okay, this is fine. Like it wasn't that. But the biggest kick I got out of it was, so in the movie, without giving too much away, but like there's like Barbie land, and then she comes to the real world at one point. But in Barbie land, there's like an area of like they're called what they call them, discontinued toys.
Yeah.
Right. So like there's like Midge, who Mattel at one point made a Barbie doll that was pregnant and had a baby. And like so like Midge is in the area of discontinued toys, and so something's going on. They're like, oh, shut up, Midge. And then they cut to this pregnant lady, but she's a pregnant Barbie. There was like in the 90s it came out with Ken with an earring, and that was, which is ridiculous now, but at the time that was like, oh my god, this is too much, and so they had a guy there with an earring. That was that guy. But then the one thing, and I swear I remember the girls across the street having this. This was a real toy. It was a Skipper doll, and it was called, I think, Skipper's Growing Up. And you would take the doll's arm and you would go up and down with it, and her boobs would get bigger. Right. And it was a real toy. And they make reference to that in the movie, and it's hysterical. And you're just like, oh my god, I remember that toy. So I
do remember that. I think I do remember that.
So like,
that's
so the movie itself, yes, it was very good. Pro women and all that stuff, but I got a big kick out of them referencing like some of these like poor decisions.
Oh, that's hysterical.
Yeah, so it was funny that way. I got a kick out of that and stuff. But,
I really want to say, because I think it came out when we were on our trip.
I think,
and it was like everybody. There was all this all this on social media. I was like, we gotta go see this movie when we get home.
Right? Yeah. So that was good. And then I think the following weekend we went and saw Oppenheimer.
Oh yeah, how was that?
Right. And that was really good.
Okay.
That was like, now we're going to talk a little bit about these other shows, but one of the things I was saying is before the show we were talking, I'm a little bit, I think I'm getting a little fatigued with some of the superhero geek stuff. And so the best way to describe Oppenheimer was, and this sounds bad, but it was a real movie. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was like, it was very dramatic, but it was also like somewhat historical and educational. And like, I don't know, it was really well done. And it really kind of gave you a window to Oppenheimer himself, but then also like, like how he built the bomb, but like sort of what was going on at the time, and like his reservations. And then afterwards he kind of came out against it. He's like, whoa, take it easy on these bombs, like this and then people turned on him, and it was like during the Cold War, so he got caught up in a lot of the oh, you're a communist, and stuff like that. The Red Scare is what I'm trying. So
interesting.
But, it was really good. I think you'd like it a lot, just from the historical, history and the things and stuff. But it was good. I really liked it, and it was a nice change of pace. Just being like, oh, this is like a I feel bad saying real movie, but
like an old school movie.
Yeah, this is just a movie, and it's I really liked it. I mean, I expected everyone was ranting and raving about it going into it, but I was surprised at just how much I enjoyed it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
I mean, it's all this stuff and it's sad because it's like, I mean, we've been real busy. I mean, since we've been home, I've been catching up on, we were gone for a really long time, so it was like 10 days seems like forever, right?
Right.
And and then I was catching up on work and just stuff going on at home. Kids are back to school now. So
that's right. I forgot you guys are back.
So it feels like now it's like if you don't see that movie when it comes out,
nope. Right.
Like it's only there for a couple of weeks, and then like I don't even know how many screens that's on anymore, and it just came out at the beginning of the month.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think Barbie is still out there. I think that's still going strong, but Oppenheimer, I mean, I know it did very well, but I don't know if that's still around there or not.
Yeah, I'll have to check it out.
I know it's a shame. It's like I mean, all these movies, like like we said, we're laughing about June. We wanted to, there's all this stuff I wanted to go see, and and then it's like you miss it, but then it there's no urgency because like it's available like instantly.
Yeah.
And it's so it's good and bad. I mean, it's great. I missed it, so it's great. It's on HBO Max or Max already.
Yeah.
But so it's like it's it's interesting just how everything's changing. It's very different now.
Yeah. I don't love it.
I mean,
I want to. It's convenient, but it's like I kind of. It'd be nice if the movies were in the theater for a while,
for a little while longer, give people a chance to see them, and
there's
something to be said. I mean, it's I do enjoy going to the movies. It's like
Yeah.
it's something to go do, and it's it's fun. I mean, for the most part, the crowds are usually pretty good, and it's you don't get it's not like I don't know, it's not like the old days. I feel like you used to have the crowds used to be much more rowdy, but now it's
Yeah.
now it seems like everyone's there. They're like, all right, we all paid money. We're going to watch this movie,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. So, but yeah, it's good and bad,
Yeah.
But,
So
yeah.
all right.
So, but yeah. So that's all. That's about it for us, And
All right.
yeah. So I guess that
Are we
brings
ready
us
to get into it?
Yeah, we might as well. So
All
that
right.
brings us to
I think we have Ahsoka
yeah.
first.
Okay. All right. So yeah, that brings us to Ahsoka. So Ahsoka premiered last week with episodes 1 and 2, and then episode 3 came out today, and I've seen that, but I won't talk about that.
Yeah.
I'll have to edit my comments in case I
Okay.
so spoilers for episodes 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're all caught up. What did you think about it? What for being the new Star Wars show? What'd you think?
It's okay.
Uh-oh.
I mean, no, it's like you said. Like we're I don't know about these shows. You know what I'm saying? Like I almost feel like I'm getting a little burnout on all everything coming out. I mean, and it's like you said, like I said, I never thought I'd be in a position where I'd be like, oh, another Star Wars show.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I mean, what I've seen the first 2 episodes. They were good. I mean, there wasn't anything about it that I hated.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, it's. I mean, it's not lighting the world on fire for me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, I'm gonna watch it. And I don't hate it. I just don't. I haven't seen anything yet that I'm like, wow, this is Star Wars. All right, I mean, it looks like Star Wars. Like it's kind of cool. Like it is a little disorienting to see these animated characters.
Yeah, I will agree with that.
Come to life, right?
Yes.
And I feel like I don't want to nitpick, but I do feel like, I mean, at least what we've seen so far, like Ahsoka and what's her name?
Sabine.
Okay. I feel like they're kind of wooden to me. Like the acting is a little wooden,
Yes.
And even Hera. Like I feel like all of them were sort of like.
I agree with that. Cause I was trying to chalk it up. I was thinking about it. I'm like, all right, well, are they just sort of getting used to the roles? And then like Ahsoka, I'm like, well, is she being like Rosario Dawson's a great actress, but I'm like, is that like, that's how she's being instructed? Like you're a Jedi or you're a pseudo Jedi or whatever you know what I mean? Like, so I kind of get the impression that like she's being more even keeled like that, which comes across as wooden, but I'm like, but maybe that's what they want because she's a Jedi. It's like Luke. I mean, Luke doesn't get, I mean, once Jedi hit, and even in the other Mandalorian appearances, he was very kind of like, even keeled and very, you know what I mean? So I'm like, that's what I thought about Ahsoka anyway. I'm like, oh, then maybe that's the direction they're trying to take her in. But I found Sabine, especially Sabine, but also Hera, just to be a little bit like wooden, and again, I couldn't figure out like, was it my disconnect because I'm used to seeing them animated?
Well, right, and like, so like, and I'm on record saying the Clone Wars was not my favorite show in the world, right?
Right.
But like, the character of Ahsoka in that show, whether you loved her or hated her, she had character.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like she was sarcastic and she was a little like, she had like more of a personality. I feel like.
Yeah.
And
yes.
And so I'm watching Rosario Dawson, and we didn't see. I mean, I guess I saw it in The Mandalorian too, but we didn't see her a lot in The Mandalorian. I mean, there were one episode, whatever.
Yes. Yeah, but I was expecting a little bit more like like Star Wars banter, like a little bit more but there's like, not for anything, there's not a, like there's not a Han Solo character there, and he's the one that kept a lot of that going.
Yeah.
So but yes, I did think that yeah, she
So
she was.
I hope it gets better. And I think, and it's like you said, maybe that's like, okay, it's supposed to be awkward because clearly there's been some kind of distance between them, and so they're kind of getting to know each other again. So I hope maybe it gets better.
Yeah.
But it's just, but even Sabine, like I was like, and again, Rebels wasn't my favorite show in the world, but like Sabine
she was like a
character, right?
Yeah,
she had like a personality. She was
like a Spitfire, right? I mean, remember she was like, yeah. And here she seems, very subdued.
Right.
And now I don't know, right? Again, is it coming from cartoons to live action where they're just trying to, tone her down some? And she also, I mean, it's also age wise. I mean, if we saw them at the end of Rebels to now was probably like 5, 10, 15 years. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
What I mean? Like,
yeah, I don't know. Is this supposed to take place immediately after?
This is in the same time period as Mandalorian.
Same time, and that's 5 years after Jedi or something.
Yeah, it started 5 years after Jedi. Where they are now in the scale, I mean, it could be a couple years later, but
right.
So I mean, if the original trilogy was what, a 5-year thing, maybe.
Yeah,
and so say it's 10 years later. Okay, that might make sense. But yeah, I'm not sure. What?
It's like I don't hate where they're going.
Oh no,
right?
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, well, we've set up. We're gonna go looking for Ezra and Thrawn. Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like it took a while. It was maybe a little. I don't know. Not that it was slow because now they're on their way, but like I don't know. It's just what I've seen so far. I don't. It's fine.
Right.
But I can't say that I like love it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah. All right. I think I liked it more than you did.
Okay.
I mean, I agree about that. Everybody seems a little wooden character wise, but then like one of the things I kind of picked up on, and I'm by no means an expert in like samurai movies or anything like that, but like with Ahsoka and like, I just really like got the impression that they were trying to like, whereas like the Mandalorian was like a Western. I was like, I'm like, oh, I think they're trying to do like a samurai type of thing with the
I can see that, right?
Some of the stuff I was like, okay, but now, again, the character, like wooden characters, actors, you know what I mean, like acting aside, I kind of like that, and I kind of like, they were taking their time and setting up the mystery of the orb, which really wasn't that mysterious, but
right.
It's like a Rubik's cube. Click, click. Okay, here's the answer. But
yeah. That was
yeah.
It was like the MacGuffin.
Yeah, right. But so I was trying to figure out what they were going for, and I did like some. I mean, I'm enjoying it. I am liking where it's going. I'm excited to see where we're going with it and stuff. And it is fun to see these characters in live action, even if it's jarring. I'm enjoying that. But I guess that's you really kind of hit the nail on the head there with the with it's just like, and I'm trying to put my finger on it. I mean, they're not bad actors or actresses and actors or whatever like that, but I'm trying to figure. I think it might be are Jedi inherently boring? You know what I mean? Like you don't think about it, but I mean, they're all supposed to be at peace with themselves and like all that stuff, and it's like, I mean, it'd be like it's like having like.
But see, like isn't that sort of the thing? Like he's not a Jedi.
And that's where I'm having I'm looking for some clarification on that as well, because I'm like, well, she's not a Jedi. It may have been this current episode, and it's not a spoiler, but she does mention that she wasn't able to complete her training with her master. With I don't know if she says Anakin's name, but I think she says I wasn't able to complete my training. I left the Jedi Order. So like, I don't know.
I saw that.
Oh, you
saw
did?
that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So that was I think that was in episode 2.
Oh, good. Okay, so it was then. So but I'm looking forward to like, all right, well, let's find out what was Ahsoka doing while we didn't see her.
Yeah.
Obviously at some point she started training Sabine in the, as to be a Padawan apprentice, and then they had a falling out.
Yeah, and that's all stuff we didn't know about, right?
Right.
Like that was not something that, because I was trying to think, that was all part of it too. Is I was like, I probably should have watched the end of Rebels,
right?
Because I don't know.
I was those first 2 episodes the whole time. I'm like, did Sabine have the Force?
Right.
I didn't think she did, and the whole time I'm like, wait a minute, what do you mean she's training her? She didn't have the Force, and so I was really trying to remember, and then,
well, it was like she got the dark saber.
Oh right, yeah,
right.
Oh,
she had the dark saber, and then
that's right,
and then I think Ezra was training her.
With the dark
if I remember,
saber,
like he was training her on how to use the dark saber, as I recall.
I think you're right with that now. Yes.
And
so maybe,
but I think that's as far as it got.
Right, and then Sabine gives the dark saber away, and then Ezra disappears. So maybe that's where it picks up from. Whereas like she sort of took up Ezra's mantle as like a Padawan type of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So. Yeah, but so that was a little bit of a disconnect for me though too, because I'm like,
okay, all right.
I'm like, wait a second, what's the robot?
I was he in the I assume he was in the animated show. I don't remember him at all.
He's voiced by David Tennant.
Okay, I think I remember David Tennant doing a voice, but I didn't remember.
He's in the one. I think it's with the kids, and they go to pick out their crystals in the caves for the crystals for their lightsabers. I think he's in that one.
But wasn't that Clone Wars?
Yes. So he's like, so we don't know how he met up with us after Clone Wars.
He somehow meets up with Ahsoka. Okay.
Yeah, so they brought him back, but we don't know how that happened either.
Okay.
So I really hadn't thought about that. So that's another untold story, like how she finds him or what happens to him after the whole purge and all that.
Well,
stuff.
I think that's like maybe that's part of what I was like. Well, what am I like? I don't remember any of this. Was there any of this in maybe none of it was, and I don't know. Because again, I guess they're basing a lot of this on the fact that you've never seen any of those shows. Like, I mean, we've seen them, but we don't remember them. But
right. Yeah. So, but that's probably the thing is like, if you like us, we're like, what? I don't remember that. Or, you're trying to like jog your memory. You're like, wait, is that right? Or with Sabine, you're like, what the hell? She didn't have the Force. But if you're somebody who didn't watch the cartoons, the animated series, and then you're watching this, you're probably like, well, you're probably getting mad because you're like, well, who the hell's this? Who's this?
Yeah.
I didn't watch that show, but really, I mean, I think if you watch the show, they pretty much, they tell you everything, but it's just you can't help but, start going in your head like, well, who's this and what's that and all, all that stuff.
All right, so just tell me that, like, do we get a Thrawn in episode 3, or does he not show up yet?
Nope, not yet.
Okay.
I have a suspicion. I'm not sure, but I feel like he's the end game. I think I bet you we're not going to see him until the end.
Until the end. Okay.
I think he'll be the last episode of the season. That's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
Would be thrilled to be wrong. You know what I mean? But that's what I'm thinking anyway.
Okay. All right.
But I really enjoyed seeing Chopper in live action. I think he's a trip. I like I like him. Yeah, and he was funny. So on the video there, when that little droid's head pops up, I wanted to show that. If you can go back. So if you're on the podcast, we're on YouTube and we're playing the Ahsoka. Yeah, that word right there. So we're watching the Ahsoka trailer. And
I'm gonna try to pause it.
Yeah, I know it's hard to do. There. All right. So if you look at that R2 unit right there, that's the same head as the original action figure R2's head.
Oh yeah, with the strange
with
triangle.
The eye and those little triangle shapes.
Yeah.
That was the original counter action figure. That's based off of that. And I just thought
funny.
Everyone was kind of flipping out when this first came out in the toy groups because they're like, oh my god, it's like the original R2's head. That's a little Easter egg for everybody. But yeah, I mean, I am liking it. I am enjoying where it's going, and I see a lot of what they're trying to do. And you'll in episode 3, you'll see some other stuff that you're like, oh, this is you remember that quote from Lucas where he's like, oh, everything rhymes, and yeah. So like in episode 3, certain things you're like, oh, this reminds me of that, and oh, this reminds me of that. So it's like, and it's not necessarily a bad thing because I'm like, oh, this reminds me of that, and I like that. So uh, I, I like it. I mean, I'll tell you what I'm really interested in is the bad guys.
Yeah, I will say, like, of everything I've seen so far, he's the most interesting.
Yeah, his name, Balin
Skull.
Okay, yeah, I really like. He's cool. And then his Padawan, do you have her name in front of you?
No.
Okay. Then his Padawan, and if you notice, she's got the like a Padawan braid, and so I'm like, all right, so they're basically, well, people were calling them like gray Jedis. Now that's not official or anything like that, but like because they're not Sith, but they're not good Jedi.
Yeah, and isn't his saber orange or something?
Yes, where it's like, yeah, so it's like orange, and because when the first trailer came out, everyone's like, why is the saber orange? And they're like, there's a reason for that. So I guess it's trying to show that maybe he's starting to go towards the dark side or something like that. But I find those two very interesting. And then the woman that Ahsoka fought in the Mandalorian, her name is Morgan Elsbeth, I think it is.
Yeah, something like that.
And then she revealed in episode 2 that she's a Night Sister.
You're right.
Yeah, which is from Dathomir and a Force Witch, and so there's a whole
there's a whole
the whole thing
Clone Wars like series about the Knights or the Witches of Dathomir or whatever. I remember that.
They were in the old expanded universe, and it was always these weird witch things, and you're like, what this is weird, what are these things? And it was cool, and then they fold them in the Clone Wars, and it turns out that's where Darth Maul and what was his brother's name, Savage Opress, they were from. And so the Night Sisters are like, they're kind of like a fan favorite. So, and then when she revealed that, you're like, I was like, whoa, this just got interesting as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
I agree with that. The thing that I'm most intrigued about so far is those three.
Yeah,
I want to know what's the story with those three.
Yeah, and then the other guy, the Inquisitor-looking guy that turned up, his name is Marek, I think.
Oh, I don't think I've seen him yet.
He was in 3. No, he was in episode 2. When Ahsoka was chasing the when they were stealing that big engine. And then remember the guy showed up with like you can't see.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah.
So his face is hidden, so everyone's like, who is he? Everyone's trying to guess who he is.
Oh, okay.
And, some people think he's Ezra. Some people think he's Star Killer, who's from the old universe, which was another one of Anakin's, or it was a Vader's apprentice in the old universe.
Okay.
And before the reboot, he was in the video games. He was in I can't remember.
Yeah.
But if you do a search for Star Wars and do Star Killer, he's played by Sam Witwer.
Yeah.
So people like, I don't know, people are starting to think that might be him. Like they're bringing him into the the mainline continuity now. But yeah, so anyway, that's like another mystery. Everyone's like, "Oh, who's he going to be?" So he could literally be nobody. But that's kind of like a thing that I've seen people wondering about as well.
Okay, yeah, I may need to like sit down and like rewatch it when I get a chance to.
Yeah,
try to take, because I'm also like doing other things while so I'm half paying attention to it.
Right. Yeah.
But like, yeah, I think it's fine. I haven't seen anything I'm like that's blown me away. I guess that's where I'm at.
I'm enjoying it. But yeah, it's not. There are some problems. Not deal breakers for me, but there are. Just like you said, it's mainly the acting, and like I'm really missing the the snappy, like that. And I mean, not for anything. I mean, Mandalorian's he's not that character. But I feel like in Mandalorian, there's usually other stuff going on that you kind of get that feeling sometimes. Whereas this, I feel like they haven't found their groove yet, and maybe that's part, like you said. There's a falling out somewhere along the way, so maybe that's what they're leading towards.
Right.
So
getting the band back together,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
everybody's
Then
Okay.
right then it might gel a little bit better. So
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, other thing I was going to mention is the as an Easter egg is in the it went by in the trailer and I've already missed it now. But so at one point they're on home one, which is where Admiral Akbar
Yeah.
was. And
Yeah.
so at one point they're on home one and like you see where Akbar's old chair is,
Yeah.
and they actually go to the where they met in Jedi with the Death Star hologram. They're actually in that room and
Yeah.
stuff. And I didn't pick up on it until I saw something later, and I was like, "Oh, I didn't realize that was the same room." So I thought that was fun, just a dumb, Easter egg. But I thought that was fun.
I only know it because I saw somebody posted on. I don't know if it was on Twitter or
Oh,
Instagram
okay.
or whatever. I saw it on, and I was like, oh, okay. So when it came up, I was like, oh, I know exactly what that is.
Oh,
Right.
got it. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, but that was pretty cool when they were on home one.
I thought that
I
was just
agree.
fun.
Yeah.
Just
I'm still waiting, and maybe we get it in episode 3. Like I know they had the little ship. I'm still waiting for the Ghost to make its appearance.
Yes. Yeah, I thought. I
I
mean,
want to see that.
Yeah, Hasbro has that whole the HasLab thing going on right now for the Ghost.
Oh, do they really? Okay.
Yeah, it's already met its goals, but now they're going to the extra thing. I didn't participate, but I was waiting for that to play a much bigger role just because they have the whole HasLab thing going on. I figured out, so maybe it will. I'm sure it will much later. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
And
I'm waiting for that.
I like Ahsoka ship in this one. You see a lot more of it in episode 3, but I don't know. I don't remember it from anywhere, but I like it. It's got that big giant wing that spins around. I think.
Yeah, and I was trying to figure. I was like, did she have that the last time we saw her in the animated series? I don't remember.
Oh,
because remember, like the animated, like they came out with those episodes. Like the Clone Wars ended,
right?
And then they came out with like a half season of shows that they had already they had in the pipeline but hadn't finished.
Yeah, the Lost Missions or something it was called.
And there were like 2 or 3 episodes that focused on Ahsoka.
Yeah, I don't think she had the ship then.
Okay.
And then when we saw her in Rebels, I don't believe she had it either. So I guess that's another thing was she picked up somewhere else along the way, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah. So I'm curious to see where it goes. I mean, they have a lot of cool elements that they're bringing together, and it's kind of fun to see. Like I can't help but like I know that they're sort of doing the they're loosely adapting the whole Heir to the Empire books that sort of relaunched Star Wars in the EU from back in the day in the 90s.
Yeah.
And so I'm just like, sort of like I haven't really picked up on too many things like that I remember of parallels, but I'm like, oh, I wonder where they're going with this. And it's kind of fun seeing them bringing certain things back, back into the main line again.
Yeah. Agreed.
So, be curious to see where it goes, but I'm enjoying it. I find there's enough in there to keep me interesting. So I'm enjoying it.
Yeah. I'm down for it. Like I'm going to watch the rest of it.
Yeah.
But I'm looking for the,
right.
something. I don't know if I'm looking for something that's not there or what, but like I'm just waiting for it to pick up a little bit.
Yeah. So
what's the reception on? Like, I haven't been thought. Like, are people liking it? Is it?
I think it's pretty much what we discussed tonight. I think from what I've understood is people are watching it, but the reception is like, it's not great and it's not terrible. Everyone's like, oh, this is okay.
Okay. All right.
So,
good.
Yeah. So, right. I was hoping for more, but I don't know, and not for anything with, I always say like, George wasn't the best director, and a lot of his Clone Wars episodes and stuff like that back in the day in the movies and stuff, like the pacing wasn't great. And were a little slower type of things.
Yeah.
And I'm more picking on the prequels and the Clone Wars TV show. And you figure Filoni learned from him, and
right.
So then I'm also paying attention to that too. I'm like, okay, what's going on here, and I don't know. It's fun to watch it on, knowing so much about all the stuff and being so aware of all the history and everything. It's interesting on a couple different levels to be, to say, like I said, oh, what are they going for here? Oh, this might be a samurai takeoff, or like
right.
Like this is he learned from George, and maybe that's what he's going for. So we'll have to see, But I am enjoying it. It's just it's not it's not like the first season of Mandalorian, which kind of blew me away, where you're like, oh my God. But then again, we're spoiled now. We get stuff like this all
Right.
the time. Yeah.
Right. And I think so. And we're going to talk about. I think we're going to talk about this a little bit when we get to Secret Invasion.
Right.
I do think like, and again, I don't hate the show. It's what I've seen so far is fine, but I do feel like everything's starting to get a little watered down. You know what I'm saying? Like and I think we're going to talk about it when we talk about Secret Invasion too. And I hope they start. It sounds like they're going to, with a lot of this Disney Plus stuff, that they're going to start changing how they're handling it, which I think is a good thing. Yeah,
well, I guess during the last earnings call, maybe it was, but I know Bob Iger basically said that he's like, oh, we're gonna cut back on, and they're going through all this cost saving and all this business stuff, but the end of the result is we're going to scale back on a lot of Star Wars and Marvel stuff, and on one hand you're like, oh no, I hate to hear that, but on the flip side, I'm like, maybe that's the best answer, because like if you like with Star Wars, if you get maybe get 2 shows a year at max, and same and like Marvel's cranking it, like the stuff over there is just it's getting ridiculous. So it's like maybe the same with Marvel, maybe you get 2 Marvel shows a year, and then it's like, oh, all right, it's manageable, and it's it's not never ending. It's like, oh, here's my little event, my however many episodes, and it makes it more special. I mean, especially like Star Wars has always been special. Like you figure for the longest time there were 3 movies and then there were 6 movies. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's always been, and then I think they found out the hard way. It's like, when they did the sequels, it's like instead of 3 years apart, they were 2 years apart, and then they were trying to jam in those standalone movies. And I thought they learned their lesson, but then they seem to not as bad as Marvel, but they, they're cranking out the TV shows, and it's like, whoa, slow down, take your time,
Yeah. Well, my fear is that they're starting to get to a point where it's like, they come up with these ideas, they're telling a story, and they're like, oh, well, you know what, we're not going to tell that story here. We'll tell this story over here. We'll do this little mini series, and we'll do the story there.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's a great way to story tell. You know what I'm saying? Like, tell me the story.
Right.
Right. Tell me everything I need to know about this story.
No, you're right. I think, and this might be me being optimistic, but I think they may have learned their lesson with Boba Fett, the Book of Boba Fett, because like that really should have just been folded in the Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Right. But instead they're like, no. And they basically pad that out and make a series out of it. And then it didn't do well. And it was kind of obvious, because you're like, well, it seemed like half baked almost, like until the Mandalorian showed back up, it was like very half baked.
Yeah.
And I think they may have learned their lesson from that. And not for anything, even the Obi-Wan show, I like the Obi-Wan show. I don't have any major problems with it. But when I do read the critiques of it, it's not the typical naysayers, and it's not the grifters. It's not that it's more people saying like, oh, they probably could have edited that down and made a really cool 2.5-hour movie or something.
Yeah.
And when you start to think of that, you're like, yeah, there may have been some padding in there, and they probably could have tightened that up a little bit more. And so then that's when you realize you're like, okay, maybe like, maybe more isn't always best. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And and just like, I think that's why I liked Andor as much as I did.
Oh,
because Andor was sort of like a complete story, like a self-contained. We didn't really know anything about Andor before Rogue One, right? And so, but what we got was like a complete story.
Yeah.
And now we're going to get more of that story, but you know what I'm saying? Like, it was sort of self-contained. Like, you didn't really need to see anything else.
It's funny. Yeah, it's funny because like we loved that first phase of the Marvel universe where everything was connected and everything was, and then this tied into this and this, and we like loved it, and it was so new and different. Whereas now we're tired of that now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, because like, look at Andor, like you said, you're like, you didn't have to know anything else. You just watched Andor. Yeah. Okay. You have to, Rogue One's the end of the game, but you didn't have to even know that. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. So I think it's that.
It's one thing when it's like there's these little threads that lead, but it's another thing when it's like, oh, well, you got to in order to understand what's going on here, you got to watch Rebels, and I mean it's sort of, you know, and I feel like Marvel's kind of getting like that. Well, if you're going to watch the Marvels in November, you got to see Ms. Marvel, and
Yeah,
you know,
right.
it's almost like it's getting to be homework.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
You know, and it's like, well, I want to, you know, and it's, I don't know. I want to sit down and enjoy the show. I don't want to sit down and like, well, I got to watch this because I want to watch this thing
Right.
2 months from now. So
Yeah.
I got to watch this, right? Like, I don't want it to be like that.
I'd be curious for Ahsoka. Like, I'd love to see somebody that just came into this cold and watched it. And I wonder if they, like, how they felt, if they were like, what the hell's going on here? What did I miss?
Yeah.
Or if they're like, wow, Ahsoka's really cool. I'd like to know more about her. You know what I mean? Because there's like, if it was done right, you could watch it and be like, that was enjoyable. I'd like to know more about these characters. Oh, well, here, go watch Rebels because that was pretty cool. And you know what I mean? Like, it would be like you know, it'd be a bonus to go, oh, you can see her backstory over on Rebels if you want, but you don't need to know it.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
You know, but I think that's a lot of people get hung up on too, is like, good or bad, it's like, you know, that's out there, so you're like, well, I guess I have to watch that. And that's, you know, it's kind of like, that's why Mandalorian was so nice, is just because you're like, oh, cool, you know, like,
right, it's its own thing. It was like its own
right
story.
And then, yeah, and then Baby Yoda pops up and it's not like, oh crap, what the hell was he in, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, you're like, oh, this is brand new, what is this, you know? Like,
yeah.
so, yeah, they it's yeah.
I mean, I'll tell you, I think it's telling, you know, like, my family has no interest in this show whatsoever. Like, and you know, and I said, because I had actually heard, like, I had been seeing positive things about Ahsoka online, so I was like, I was like, you guys want to see this? I was like, it's supposed to be pretty good, and I think it's because none of them have watched Clone Wars. They don't know who Ahsoka is. I mean, Nick has seen a little bit of the Clone Wars, but my wife hasn't, and my daughter hasn't, and like, they just don't care.
I explained it to my wife. I said, oh, I was all excited for we were down the shore, and I said, oh, I'm going to watch the new Ahsoka, and she's like, who's that? I said, oh, I said that, remember the alien Jedi from the Mandalorian episode, and she's like, oh, right, okay, because she'd watched the first 2 seasons of Mandalorian anyway, you know. So, but that's all, you know. So I'm like, yeah, if you don't know beyond her appearance of Mandalorian, it's like, you know, you're like, wow, they gave her a show, you know, like, it's kind of like
right.
Like, wow, she was interesting, but I don't know why she got her whole show. But then you realize, you're like, oh, there's much more to her. But yeah, you're right. Then it's like homework. You're like, well, who was she? You know?
Yeah, right. Right. You know, just, you know.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah. So all right. Well, hopefully they can figure that out. I know, right? I know. So yeah. So there's Ahsoka and Mandalorian, and then we have that Skeleton Crew coming out for Star Wars. But I think that's it for the TV shows, right?
I think so.
I think so. I think that's it for now. And I think so. That's probably, they must have learned, you know, hopefully learned their lesson. Now, Marvel, which we're going to, I guess, go into now, unless you're.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll talk about Marvel.
Oh, we have another trailer. Sorry about that.
That's all right. I did too. But with Marvel and yeah, they have Secret Invasion. Now they're scaling back everything as well. So we'll have to see what else. But I still feel like there's a ton of stuff in the pipeline from them. Whether or not they're going to release it all at once or spaced out, that's a whole nother thing. But yeah, I guess for now let's talk about Secret Invasion, and then we can add some more thoughts to the end of that. But you know, so now that it's all said and done, Secret, it ended. We think it ended like a month ago. It feels like forever.
Yeah, it does. It feels like it's last year.
Yeah, really. But yeah. So what? Yeah, I'll throw it to you for this again. What did you think of? What did you think of Secret Invasion?
It was okay. I mean, I didn't hate it. I there were elements of it I thought were really good. It was, I feel like for the story they were trying to tell, it was way too short.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? But like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It was, you know, like, then you run that line, like, how, I don't know. I don't know. I watched it. I was entertained by it. Did I think it was what I hoped it would be? No.
You know?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'll go out and say like I did not care for this one. I mean, I didn't hate it, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
it struck me as like it's a shame because I know, you have Samuel L. Jackson and I know they spent a ton of money on it, but it almost felt like it was half baked. Like
Yeah.
they had
Yeah.
this, they wanted to tell this intrigue and spy story, and yes, there's a secret invasion. The scrolls are taking over from behind the scenes, um, and that's pretty neat and could be, well, could be very interesting, but like I guess for the Marvel universe, it felt very small, which I guess I know they were going for
Yeah.
that, but it's
Right.
like, not for anything, but it's like the Avengers, although they're not the Avengers right now, but there's all these superheroes out there. It's like it just feels like it felt like it felt silly not to call for help. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
In for this story in particular, it
yes,
didn't make any sense that there were no superheroes involved.
right,
You know.
yeah,
Um.
and yeah. So there's that, and like that's where the whole everything connected backfires because then now you're like, well, where is everybody?
Yeah.
And then yeah, I don't know. I felt like it was very padded. I mean, for like it could have been a much longer story, but at the same time, like I felt it was like a little bit padded. I'm like, this could have been a really good like 2 hour movie. Like I don't know. I felt like they could have cut some stuff out, and like I felt it feels bad, but the whole thing with Fury and his like the alien wife,
Yeah. I didn't.
I didn't like uh, that didn't do anything for me. The initial surprise was there. I'm like, oh, okay, but it I don't know. It never really played
Yeah. But
out. Like,
right. I hear you. And I thought this like those the scenes between those two
oh yeah,
were very good. But I just yeah, like you're saying, like I they could have cut that out and it would have been fine.
right. Like because there wasn't like any that I remember anyway. There wasn't like any crazy plot twist. Like I mean, yes, she was sort of betraying him, but she didn't, and there was like that stuff going on. But like I really like it. They could have cut out that whole thing, and I don't think it would have made a bit of a difference,
Yeah.
which is kind of sad,
Right. Right.
And then I kind of at the end, em, Emily Clark,
Amelia Clark. Yeah.
Amelia Clark, she turns into the Super Skrull at the end, but like this is me being nitpicky, but from the comics that was a Fantastic Four villain, but like now the Skrulls have like Groot's powers, and so they started adding all this other stuff in, which I'm like, okay, like. But by the end, that big fight at the end, like they're pulling in like all these powers from people that I'm like, were they even at in the battle, the like end game
Right.
fight? I forget who she was using somebody's powers, and I'm like, were they even there? I don't remember.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
again,
It
where
was.
it's like
And
homework,
now
where
she's right. And now she's out there like crazy overpowered.
yeah, right.
Right.
And you're just kind of like, okay, what's going to happen with her?
Right.
Did he? I can't even remember. Did the main bad guy? He got killed, right?
Yes.
She kills him. She kills him
Yes.
before she flies. Okay, right.
Right. And then
Yeah.
she gets together with the I can't remember the actress's name or her character. Her.
Oh,
one,
right. Yeah, and she was irritating to me. Yes,
yeah.
the British lady.
Yeah.
Right. Yes.
She gets together with her.
Right. Yeah.
Um.
Yeah. She was like the British Nick Fury, maybe. I mean, but like
Yes.
she was all like kind of like, oh, poppycock, or what, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like she
Yeah.
was, and I just found her like, I'm like, I just found her irritating. I'm like, she's supposed to be this big spy master, and she was very like, I don't know. It's like they're playing her for comedy, and she was like supposed to be some like super secret agent, or I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I didn't care for her character.
Yeah. It was a weird show. It was a weird show, and it's a shame because I think the bones of a good show are there.
Yeah, right.
It
right.
just it just didn't play in execution. It wasn't executed well, I guess. And and it's a shame. It's a shame because they had some great actors. I mean, Nick,
oh, right.
Samuel L. Jackson, Amelia Clark, and who's the guy that played Talos? Ben Mendelsohn.
Yeah, he's
and,
great. Yeah, yeah.
Even the bad guy was like there's some real talent there.
Right. Yeah, they had Rhodey was I mean he was
right, Rhodey.
yeah, he was in it, and like so that was pretty, like there was some cool stuff, but like yeah, it was just I don't know, I mean and again maybe in their maybe in their rush to get stuff out, because this was made under the mandate of content,
right?
Maybe that's what happened. They're like no, before they started scaling things back. I don't know, but it just
right.
It felt like this could have used an extra pass to say like, all right, let's tighten this up, and like so
it's and I think that's I think that's what these streaming services are doing. Like, we're getting content. We're getting a lot of content.
Right.
I don't know how much quality content we're getting. And I think that's what my issue with it is. It's like, look, I don't just want a story about Nick Fury. I want a good story about Nick Fury, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's where they're going wrong. It's just, we'll get it out because we need a new show next year. So come up with something and let's get moving.
I think they've learned their lesson now. By like them saying they're scaling back. Like I said, when Iger first said that, I was like, oh, I don't like the sound of that. But then in hindsight, I'm like, no, that's probably exactly what needs to be done. I'd rather have 2 really good shows a year than 4 crappy shows.
Right.
Or
agreed.
Not even crappy. 4 okay shows,
mediocre.
Right. Just, if you're like, that was all right. Like like, so.
And it's the same with the Marvel, because now, like, how many Marvel? Because we used to get 2 a year, right?
Like movies,
Marvel movies. There was a big summer movie,
right?
And then they'd have one in the fall, like November.
Now it's at least 3, if not 4 movies a year, right? Because this year we had Ant-Man and then Guardians,
right?
And then we'll have Marvels in November. So
this
year's
so
back,
3.
So they're back to 3.
Yeah,
I'll tell you, they played the trailer for Marvels in front of Barbie or Oppenheimer. I can't remember. I'm going to say maybe Barbie. It fell. I was like in the theater. It fell flat.
That movie does not look good.
Right.
And I it pains me to say that about a Marvel movie just from the trailer, but from what I've seen, that movie does not look good.
There's a scene in the trailer where the cat gobbles up a bunch of bad guys, and then Ms. Marvel is like, "Oh my god!" and screams. And I found it funny, and so I laughed, and I'm just like in the theater, like, "Oh my god!" Like it was dead.
Yeah, I don't think that movie's going to do well.
I was like, "Oh, yeah."
Yeah. Like I said, I don't. I hate to say that.
I do,
but
too,
I just don't think that movie's going to do well.
No, and right, it's and just to be clear, it has nothing to do with them being women or female or it's more just like just looking at the thing, I'm like, oh, it didn't grab me. Like, okay, they're changing places when they use their powers. I'm like, okay, it's I don't know.
It's like, isn't it like it's sort of like Freaky Friday?
Yeah.
And like all those what they're flop movies from the 80s.
Right. Maybe that's what they're going for. Like, and who knows? Maybe it will play. Maybe it'll play better than it looks. But it's like, I'm just, I feel bad because I actually liked Captain Marvel is my favorite. I just found her kind of boring.
Yeah.
But Monica Rambeau from WandaVision.
Yeah.
I liked her. I remember really liking her in that show.
Yeah.
And then the Ms. Marvel show was cute. I mean, she's like, basically like, a female version of Spider-Man, in terms of a teenage hero. And I thought her show was cute,
Yeah.
So I was kind of looking forward to it. But then once the trailer, I'm like, I don't know about this. Like,
yeah. I mean, I will go see it. And I'll give it a fair shake, but from what I've seen so far, I haven't seen anything that has impressed me.
Matter of
so
fact,
far.
I actually thought to myself, I'm like, what? I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to see this in the theater. You know what I mean?
Really?
Like, if there's some, if I like one of the movies, if we have an opportunity to go see it, I will definitely do it. but it was just one of those things where I'm like, I don't think there's anything about this that really even remotely interests me.
Yeah,
it's terrible, you know.
I know. I hate to say that, but
Yeah.
it's just kind of like that's kind of where we're at.
I know.
But I just think, yeah, they're, and I don't want to say they're killing it, but they're all the content is doing more harm than good. Because I think,
Yes.
and frankly, it's not a problem that just Disney has. We're probably going to talk about it a little bit in Star Trek, right?
Yeah.
It's not a problem that just Disney has. I think this streaming model, right? I just don't know that it works. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's convenient, but like look all those big companies, like they're losing money,
Right.
Like they're all losing money. Like the only one that I think that is making money is Netflix, right? And that's just because.
Yes, I believe that. I think they're still profitable, whereas everybody else, right? They're having a hard time adapting.
Right. So they're really not making money. The talent, like the actors and the writers, they're not happy because they're not making any money.
Right.
And the audience isn't happy because we're not getting great content. We're getting content,
but it's not, right.
But it's not great content. So it's like, what are we doing here?
Yeah. It's like nobody's
who does
winning.
This work for?
Nobody is winning. Yeah.
Right. I don't know. I just don't know that it's working.
I know, it's so funny. They really thought that was going to be the future of everything, but then meanwhile, you look at like Sony. They don't have their own streaming service, and they're just over there like selling their movies to different places. You know what I mean? They're
right.
Just like we're making money,
right?
So it makes you wonder, like, before long, like how many of these they're going to start folding everything into each other. But I mean, how long before maybe just like, was somebody just be like, you know what, we're just going to sell lease our content to Netflix and be done with this.
Well, and I think that's part of it. I think, because there's so many streaming services now, I think a lot of them are like, well, let's just see if we can hang on.
Yeah.
And we're the ones that are left. Maybe that's the strategy.
Yeah. But it's weird. Like, I think I talked about this last time. I think, anyway, on Avatar, The Way of the Water premiered on Disney Plus.
Mm-hmm.
The same day it premiered on HBO Max. So like they're already diluting their brand. So they must have made a deal with HBO Max to be like, sure, like,
yeah.
And so it's like, and what else? Something else just recently. It wasn't The Flash. It was something else where it was like, I'm like, oh, like, they're starting to, HBO it's not a movie. HBO is giving, remember that show Band of Brothers?
Yes.
Right. And then there's the sequel is called The Pacific.
Yeah.
Right. They're going to be all available on Netflix now. So like, instead of keeping them like to themselves now, so I feel like everyone's just going to start trading everything around. You know what I mean? Like, it's going to be very rare for something to be truly exclusive anymore. Like, it'll be, I guess, once it runs its course on, for example, like Disney Plus, maybe Disney will lease it out to other companies, or like Disney put Ms. Marvel aired on ABC, I think, over the summer.
Oh, really?
I didn't see any of it, but I believe that's what they did
with
it.
A lot of times they air like a couple of episodes just to get you interested.
They did that with I think they did that with Andor, and they aired it on FX or one of their like cable channels. But I could be wrong, but I think they just aired Ms. Marvel, just flat out aired it over the summer.
Oh, did they really? Okay.
On ABC.
I think Strange New Worlds is going to be on TV. I think I just heard that. I don't know if it's season 1 or season 2, but I think that's going to be on a regular TV channel.
Oh, that's interesting. Now, why wouldn't you? If you're if you're Paramount and you own CBS, put it on CBS, do like first run it on your streaming platform and then not dump it, but put it over on CBS because those people that are still watching CBS aren't going to pay for a streaming service anyway.
Yeah.
So it's interesting just to see how it shakes out. I mean, it's like the old days where it's like it used to be, movie theater, then digital, and then, you could rent it. And then, I mean, like there's all this stuff. So But back in the day, this is a long time ago, but remember like when a movie would finally show up on like network TV, that was like a big deal. Like Sunday night
right.
movie.
Oh yeah.
Star Wars for the first time ever or whatever. And so it's almost like they're getting back to that. They're like, oh, we have all these different channels. We might as well just take this content and spread it out as much as we can, I guess.
Yeah, it's an odd, because it's like I said, when all this was introduced to us, right, like the promise was, oh, you're going to get all this content, right, and it's like, and it's great. Like, I don't just want shows. I want the shows to be decent, especially since I'm paying for it, right? Like, I mean, it would be different if I was watching.
It's not like it's showing up
network TV, right?
Free
but
on a
I'm
Saturday
paying
night.
for this now, so I expect the shows that I'm getting to be quality shows, and frankly, they haven't been. I mean, they haven't been awful, but they're not. I was most impressed since the beginning of Disney Plus, at least. Mandalorian has been pretty consistently good,
right?
And Andor I thought was really good. I liked Obi-Wan. I know there's issues with Obi-Wan, but I liked Obi-Wan. But those, WandaVision was good. I thought Loki was really good.
Loki. Season 2 that's coming up soon. But yes.
But that's really been it. Like everything else has sort of been like, oh, it was okay. It was
especially like Marvel's like a lot of like half-assed. Like Falcon and Winter Soldier did have issues because of COVID and all that stuff.
Right.
But like that was one of those ones where you're like, you're like kind of like halfway through the series, you're like looking around like what's happening here? Like what this should have been edited down. This could have been a movie.
Right. If you're going to introduce Anthony Mackie as Captain America, that show better be fantastic.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And it just wasn't.
It wasn't. They didn't. They kind of floundered on that one, and they with all of them. I mean, and
it wasn't bad. Like I said, it wasn't awful, but it wasn't.
No,
great.
It's funny. It just reminded me of. Remember when the Netflix shows were on, the Marvel Netflix shows? We always said we're like, this is like the shows were good, but they floundered around a little bit. They were always like one or two episodes too long.
Yeah.
And now it's even getting that way now even though we're getting like 8 episodes, but it's the same way where you're like, they're writing this. Whereas before they used to write a season for 22 episodes. And then it was like, oh, we want 12 episodes or, oh, we want, now it's like, there seems like a lot of these stories, like they're locked into, even though it's small, like 8 episodes, and they're like locked into 8 episodes where they're like, we don't have enough story for 8 episodes. And then all of a sudden it's like, they're stretching it out or, even like Nick Fury, this was only like 6 episodes, but like the whole like we said, the whole subplot with his wife, the alien wife. Did they add that in because they're like, oh crap, they want 6 episodes? We don't have enough. You know what I mean? Like,
right? We got to do something with
it. How can we pad this out?
Yeah.
I don't know, but it's they got to do something. They got to do something.
Yeah, it's and I do think they're changing. I hope we start to see that, but it's just it's not been great,
No. Well, now they have the writer's strike, and now the actors are still on strike too.
The next year is going to be miserable,
right?
Like it's going to be a lot of like reality TV.
A lot, and a lot of us are going to go back and start watching stuff. I've already started doing that, going back and watching shows that I missed out on. I think I said last time I was watching The Shield. Did I mention that?
No, if you did, I don't remember it.
So that was an old show on FX. It's a cop show, but it's like whenever somebody mentions like the golden age of TV, like Sopranos and like Mad Men and those shows that sort of changed the way TV worked, they always say The Shield, and it's a cop show, but it's about a dirty cop, and it was a really good show. And so anyway, I went back and watched that, and then that ended. Now I'm watching The Wire, which is another HBO show.
Yeah, I've heard of Wire.
Right, everybody says it's a really great show. Never watched it, so I'm watching that now. So I'm like, well, I might as well get into it now because we're going to be we're going to be new stuff for another good year at least,
Yeah, it's going to be bad.
Be like COVID all over again.
Yeah, it's going to be bad.
Yeah.
Oh Lord. All right. So you want to move on to?
So that's it for Marvel. Just anything coming up with Marvel. I know Loki season 2 is coming soon.
When is that?
I think it's September. So pretty much, maybe like I don't have the date.
I thought it got pushed back, or did it get pushed back to September?
Oh, maybe it got pushed back to. Let me. Since we're talking about, let me look it up real quick.
Yeah, I don't have it.
October 6th is what I have here.
Okay.
According to Wikipedia. So maybe it did. Maybe
I'm looking forward to that. I liked the first series a lot. That was like among my favorite Marvel shows that they've done. I just hope that they don't do this thing that they've been doing where it's like, wow, he introduces this really neat concept, but we're not going to like explore it at all.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I hope it doesn't go that route.
I think that was half the problem with like some of the movies after Loki is you kept waiting for like you knew Kang was supposed to show up and you knew the multiverse was or the timeline was broken and all that, and then you're just like, well, what's
nobody dealt with it.
Yeah, then they start doing the multiverse stuff, and you're like, well, okay, but like, what
about the timeline?
Right? What about the timeline? And why did if everything's connected, why didn't somebody explain? Like here's what happened. So So I hope they just refocus, get things tighten everything back up, and I mean it's there. They have the talent, they have everything there to do it. They just gotta figure it out.
Yeah, agreed.
So, all right. So let's move on. Then we'll go head over to Star Trek.
Alrighty.
And now this one we do not have a trailer because for whatever reason Paramount.
Yeah, they always take it down.
They flag our YouTube videos when we're just helping them promote their shows.
Yeah. It's all right.
So if you're listening or watching and you have any pull, what the hell?
we're not pirating your trailer. I promise. Anyway. So right. I will tell you. So what did you think of this whole season?
So it's a little bit of a theme tonight, but
yeah.
I tell you, I didn't really like the season. I mean, it felt like a lot of like filler episodes, I guess I could say. Like I'll tell you what, the last episode of the season, I have up here, the very last episode where the Gorn come in. I liked that episode a lot.
Yeah,
it felt like there was action, and it felt like what I wanted. Like I'm like, this is great. We're moving around, we're doing things, but like a lot of the other episodes, like it was like, I don't know, like it just felt like, I know one of the things I liked about the first season was they were all standalone stories, but this season I didn't like that as much, and the standalone stories, like I'd say at least half of them felt very hokey. Like Spock, his Vulcan part got removed, and you're just like, okay, like and then it was like, and then the one, we're gonna sing the entire episode, and I'm just like, no, this is not doing it for me, it
was an odd season.
It was an odd maybe season. It was just everything was odd. I enjoyed the crossover episode with the lower decks where the actors came over.
Yeah, that was among the best episodes of the season, I thought.
Right, I thought like, so
and I was like, because I knew it was happening. I had seen it, like I was watching it way back, but I knew that was going to happen.
Right.
And so, but man, I thought they handled it really well.
I did too. I liked, and that was funny. And I mean, it doesn't hurt that I watch Lower Decks, but I mean, like I enjoyed it. I thought that was funny. Like that one was good.
Right, and the character, and if I may, what we were saying about Ashoka, where the characters were not like the characters we know in live, but these characters absolutely were. They were like exactly the same. They were great.
Yes.
Right.
It helps. I mean, they're the ones that voice them, so I mean, they have But I don't know, but they did a nice job with that.
Yeah.
What's that?
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay. No, I was actually thinking back to Ahsoka. I was like, I wonder why with Ahsoka they were hesitant to use some of the voice actors there. Like I know Ashley Eckstein, Rosario Dawson did her, took over for her and stuff. But like, I don't know who did Hera, but like, I think she's probably. I don't think. Like I'm surprised they didn't use her for Hera, or
That's that's
what's her name again?
that's who
Oh,
plays
the actress is
the actress is
Obi-Wan's wife.
yeah,
Ewan McGregor's.
Ian McGregor's wife. Yes, okay.
Yeah. Mary.
I forget
Winston, something like that.
Winstead or something like that. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. But like the voice actress, I think, is a similar age.
Yeah.
I think she, so who knows what, again, there's a difference between voice acting and regular acting too. So I don't know. But anyway.
Yeah, but I thought like that was definitely my favorite episode of the season. The timeline episode with James Kirk. I mean, it's interesting, but it was. I thought it was interesting. I thought that episode was interesting.
Okay, all right.
I liked that episode, but like it got weird after that. Like it was weird that she was. I thought it was kind of weird that she was like pining for him.
Yeah.
In the correct universe, like I thought that was kind of strange.
Right. Did Kirk die in the end? Like did that version of Kirk die? Okay.
That version of Kirk dies. Yeah.
Right.
And
I just remember feeling like I'm like I don't particularly care for that version of Kirk, like just you know what I mean, like that actor and stuff like that. I don't know why, but I'm not digging this guy as Kirk. But like when he showed up, I'm just like I felt like maybe pandering is the best. Like I'm like I'm interested in this cast and crew. You don't need to drag Kirk in here. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I kind of felt like that way.
I feel like they're setting something up, right?
Well,
I feel like his presence, like I think this show is going to lead into eventually. I don't know when. I don't know how long we're going to be with this show.
Yeah,
but I think eventually this will lead into him. You'll see Pike's accident, whatever happens.
Yeah.
And then it will lead into Kirk taking command of the Enterprise. I think that's what they're setting up.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. Because right, even what do you call it? Scotty shows up. He's
right.
Yeah.
And there was that moment. I forget which episode it was, but there's a moment at the end of the episode where it's Kirk, Spock, and Uhura sitting at the table and like kind of getting to know each other.
Oh,
okay. So I'm like, all right. So this is they're telling two stories here. They're telling Pike's story up here, and then underneath is how this crew gets together, right?
Starting to lay the groundwork and stuff. Yeah.
Like, but I thought it was funny in the episode with the Lower Decks crew, how they kept talking about number one in the past tense, and she's like, "What happens to me?" Like that's like nobody knows what happened. Like she was in that pilot episode, then just disappeared, right? Like she never showed up again. So that's what I thought that was really funny, right?
That's yeah. There's something else in that episode. Doesn't he do something? He's on the saddle, and doesn't he say something about the Riker mover? Like, doesn't he do something with his like? Something. Yeah, there's like
there were a lot of good references in that show.
Yeah,
that was a good one.
That was. I mean, that was funny. But for every good one like that, there was a couple like some real duds. I mean,
yeah, I just the whole Nurse Chapel Spock thing I think is a little strange.
I know. I can't tell with Nurse Chapel. I'm like, I can't. Do I like her? Like, or is she irritating? Like, I can't decide. I'm just like, it's like
I think I like her.
Right.
I hate the whole Spock Chapel thing, and I know where they get that. Like, they're putting together because there's an episode where Spock in the OG Star Trek where Spock gets his fighting emotions or something like that, and he I think he kisses Chapel.
Oh, okay.
So I'm sure that's what this is all
like.
That's where this all comes from. But I just think the story is really. I don't know. I just don't like it. I don't love the whole Spock chapel thing going on.
Right. I agree with that. And maybe that's part of the issue too. Maybe I'm not loving Spock anymore. Like, I liked I like Spock, but like again, it's like the first season he didn't bother me. They, being that it's Spock and I was cool with the actor and all that stuff like that didn't bother me. But this season I'm just kind of like a little bit over Spock. Like I feel like we've kind of saw the guy's whole life to an extent. And I'm like, I don't necessarily know if I need it backfilled, like this part of it. You know what I mean? Like, it's a little redundant when we now for new people and all that, that's probably different. But for us, where we've been around forever, I'm like, I don't necessarily know, and I know timeline chrono, he's supposed to be there, but I'm like, I don't really know if I need, I don't know if I need to see this,
or just not this, or just not this version of it. I agree. He's, I don't know. I don't feel like he's Spock. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I guess that's where I'm at. Like the episode where he became human was kind of weird, and and like I said, the whole chapel thing I think is strange.
Yeah.
It's just it doesn't work for me. That's kind of where I'm at.
Right.
And I mean, but it's like you said, like the last episode was good.
I enjoyed that.
Like the cliffhanger, I thought was pretty good. And I will say this, like the singing episode is just absolutely bizarre, right? Like it's just bizarre. That said, I think they were just they were trying to have some fun,
right?
And on that level, I thought it was well executed, right?
Yeah.
Like, I thought the story doesn't make any sense,
right?
But if you just look at that episode and like, all right, I'm going to take this out of the continuity and see it for what it is, which is just a lot of these people can probably sing, and they thought it would be fun to do this, and I think on that level, it was well done,
right. Yeah, and I agree with that. I agree.
Yeah.
I don't. Right.
It was like a whole High School Musical vibe, right? Like that's exactly kind of what I got from it, and I was like, all right, if it's that, that's fine. It didn't story-wise, it didn't make any sense whatsoever.
Right. Yeah. and right. Whereas like I was much. Yeah. But standalone, it was fine. It was silly, but it was fine. Like I don't have a problem with that. But just like knowing that. Like I was looking for, I personally, I was looking for more like episode 10, the last, more action and more.
Right.
So like for that by the time that rolled around, I'm like, oh, all right already.
Yeah.
Maybe if it was earlier in the season, I would have enjoyed it more just because I would have been like, oh, this is clever,
Yeah. I mean, it was, you're right. Like if that was the only one that was like a little, and again, with the whole, like the Spock becoming human, like, again, with the whole like Freaky Friday kind of scenario, right?
Yeah.
He didn't switch bodies, but
But right, yeah.
But
then, there was that other one where they were on the planet, and then the minerals were making them lose their memories and all that stuff.
Yeah, that one.
I was just kind of like, I mean, I don't know. I just was like, I
didn't understand that episode at all. At all, because I think it was. You know what I did is I went back and because I was like, what are they talking about, right? Because they're referring to the pilot episode that never aired, right? The one where Pike is the captain, right?
Right.
And there's a moment in that, like at the beginning of that episode, and I had to go back and read this because I was like, what are they talking about in this whole episode? Because none of this, I don't know where they're going. And what happens is at the beginning of that pilot episode, Pike is having a conversation with with the doctor on the ship, who was Mbenga, right? And they're talking about a mission that they just had where several people died, and it really didn't go well.
Okay.
Okay, so that episode is not referring to what you see in that episode. It's referring to that conversation he had with Mbenga at the very beginning of the show, and then while he's on the planet in the pilot, they flash back to his battle on that planet in that episode. Does that make sense? There's a flashback moment where they take him to that battle where these guys die.
Okay.
And in that flashback, it's on this planet in this episode. In that episode.
Okay. Right. Yeah.
So it's really strange because I was like, because I've seen that pilot a lot. Because it's actually not a terrible show, and I like Pike, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know what they're talking about in the show because none of this happened in the pilot.
Right.
And basically everything that they're talking about in that episode happened off screen.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
It was weird. You know what I'm saying? Like just do something with the episode that we can watch.
Right. Yeah. Right.
You know, like why would you? I don't know. I mean, I guess they're trying to be clever, but I don't think it worked very well.
I don't even think I realized that that's what was going on. You know what I mean? Like, because I don't think I've ever seen the original Pike episode.
Okay.
And so, like, I don't even know. I can't really remember. I can't remember. You know what I mean? I'm not sure what I got out of it. And I remember, all I remember is like they were weren't they losing their memories on the planet? Right?
Yes.
Wasn't that like a whole?
There was some kind of like memory suppression. I don't think that had anything to do with anything that happened in any OG Star Trek.
Okay.
But that was like new as far as I could tell.
Yeah. I just remember them leaning into that a little bit, and I'm just like, it felt like a little heavy-handed to me about, I don't know if they were trying to make a connection for the like Alzheimer's, or I don't know what they were trying to do with the memory loss thing, but it just whatever it was a little heavy-handed, and I'm like, I kind of lost interest. I'm like, I don't know what's going on here.
Yeah, it was a weird episode. It was a weird episode.
I guess maybe for the diehards they were trying to make that connective tissue or something like that. But
I guess I don't. Yeah, it was strange, but
interesting.
Yeah, it's just not. Season 1 was better.
I felt like season 1 was really strong.
Yeah,
and
season 1 was a lot better.
Yeah. So I don't know. I felt like not for anything, but I feel like Pike like is the main guy, and I feel like he wasn't in this season very much at all. Like and now maybe
like in the first few episodes, we barely saw him.
Yeah, and so I don't know if that was by design or if maybe they were on purpose trying to not replicate Discovery's issues, because what's her name, Michael Burnham, yeah, where it's like it's her show, whereas maybe they're trying to get to know the crew better, and maybe that's what they were trying to focus on. But meanwhile, I'm like, well, where's Pike?
Yeah.
So but and then I feel like that episode we just talked about where they were losing their memories and stuff was like the first episode where he was like had like the it was part of the A storyline.
Yeah.
And
that was like 3 or 4 episodes in.
That was it took quite a while.
It was 4 because the 3 was the
Kirk one, right? Yeah. So I know.
I'll look. I will look. I like Strange New Worlds. This season was a little off. I agree. But the cliffhanger was really good. I do what the stuff they do with the Gorn, I think, is quite good.
Yeah, I really do like that. Refresh my, what was the cliffhanger? I can't remember.
Basically they the Gorn have captured the away team, right, including Pike's girlfriend.
Okay.
And they've beamed them onto their own ship, and Starfleet is calling.
Oh, right.
Starfleet is calling Pike and being like, "Hey, you're in over your head, and we can't be in a battle with the Gorn. You need to get out of there." Okay. And that's the cliffhanger. Is he turns around and he's like, he's going to stay. Like he ain't
of course,
he ain't leaving.
But okay, I remember it now.
Yeah. So it'll be cool to see how that plays out. I think I like what they've done with the Gorn. I think that is really cool.
Yeah, that's really fun. Like it's I mean, right? They took a guy in a dinosaur costume or whatever, from the original, and actually made him interesting, and I'm fine with that. I think that's great.
Yeah,
and that was I liked that because it was like you see them when they're like they had them when they were young, and then they had the actual older ones, and like the guy was in a spacesuit or something, right?
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty cool, and then they're scary, like they're kind of they made them. It was kind of it's a fun they turn them into cool villains versus
right. Instead of like the thing with the zipper in the back that you could see, right? Yeah, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I also think like Uhura is kind of weird. Like I like that they're giving her more to do, but I don't know. It's almost like we see her a little bit too much. I don't know.
Yeah. Right. I mean, maybe behind the scenes, maybe this season, maybe they did say like, listen, like season 1 was all about Pike. Season 2, let's get to know the crew.
And we did, right? And I think we did, right? Like everybody seemed to have their own. Episode.
What's the pilot's name? I forget what her name is, but like she was had a lot to do this season. I feel like and then
I forget her name too. And then the con
crew no whatever
I don't remember.
And then the con
the con relative. We've gotten to know her a little bit. Of course, she has the weird obsession with Kirk now.
Yes, right. Which
right, like
just like okay, that's right.
I don't know.
Yeah, you're right though when you think about it, because you're right. And then like I feel like Uhura's there, but yeah, right. She's getting a little bit like, and even the nurse, like they're getting a little bit too like it's not that they're getting too much screen time, but it's like you're just not used to them getting that much. You know what I mean? Like, and there used to be more like one off that like Geordi would have Geordi was always there, but this is a Geordi episode, and that's fine. But like, it feels like they're I don't know. It's hard to describe, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's where I land with Chapel though. I don't dislike Chapel. I really don't like the relationship.
Yeah,
that I don't like at all.
Yeah, and I can agree with that because you're just like it's not going anywhere. They're trying to build this tension up, and you're like, oh, we know this is dumb.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. Now, was Nurse Chapel around during the entire original series?
She was always. I think she's in. Yeah, I think she's in season 1 and season 2 more. I think she's in season 3 less.
Okay.
But there's a couple of episodes where like I think like her and Kirk sort of have a thing in the or seemingly have or at least flirt, right? Like seemingly in the OG Star Trek.
Okay.
So that's why maybe that's why I'm thinking I was like, well, she doesn't end up with him. Well, she doesn't end up with Kirk either, but
But yeah. For all this, right, all the shenanigans going on in this series, you'd think there'd be more like they're adding way too much to it for one kiss in the next series. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I'm going to watch it. I am curious to where it's going.
Yeah.
And I do think it's the best, like of the Star Trek we've seen. I think this is the strongest. No, season 3 of Picard is the best, but this is it's definitely second.
Yeah, the season was my favorite, but it's by no means. Yeah, it wasn't terrible. It's still I'm going to watch next season, unlike Discovery, which I stopped watching.
Yeah, I'm off Discovery. I stopped watching it 2 seasons ago, I think.
Yeah, I think I'm the same way. And then I do watch Lower Decks. I think that's coming back soon, so I do watch that. But that's just
Lower Decks is fun. I mean, it's a fun show.
Yeah. And I'm sure you get more of the jokes in there than I do. I know there's a ton of jokes in there.
There's a lot of deep cuts and stuff.
Yeah.
Lower decks. Stuff that I have to, I'm like, what was he talking about there? I got to look it up. But yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, all good. And then for Star Trek, we have Lower Decks is coming out, and I just saw something today where the section 13, 31. What's
I think it's going to be a movie now.
Yeah, I just
it was supposed to be a show, but now I think it's going to be a movie.
Right. Yeah. And I just saw a headline today that they said something like there's an update and maybe a name change, but I don't know if I didn't click on it or if I don't remember. But so I guess there's some movement on that, but maybe I don't know. I feel like I was starting to read it, but then I feel like there's something about the strike, so maybe they didn't.
Oh yeah. Everyone. Oh yeah. We're getting nothing next year. Yeah. I mean unless it's been
right.
Already done.
If it's in the can, then it's done. If not, everything's gonna be nice and delayed.
Yeah.
I know. So we'll have to see.
What are we going to talk about next year, Grant?
Yeah, I know, right? We'll go back and, like I said, we'll be all these old shows we never caught up on and never watched. To be like, oh, we finally got around to Discovery season 3.
Yeah, that's right. I'll talk about that. Oh Lord.
And we'll go back and review the old movies. Oh, we sat down and watched the original Batman.
Right, like all the movies we missed this summer. We can talk about that. Oh Lord.
Well.
Anyway.
So, all right. Well, I guess that about wraps it up for today.
Yeah. We don't have anything else, right? Okay.
Yeah, I don't think so.
All right. So, what's that? We're going to wrap up the show. Thanks for joining us tonight, and we will talk to you next time.
All right.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.